So in this video, I want to talk about my first birth experience. So when I got pregnant with my son, I was 19 at the time. I was still 19 when I'd given birth. I didn't know much about labor or birth. My mom had had 3 C-sections, so she never really got to experience vaginal birth. So because of that, I didn't have a lot of information, and I won't lie, I didn't really use the internet to research anything. I kind of just went with whatever I was told to do. So my pregnancy was really good. I didn't have really a hard time with that at all, except for the fact that I was vaccinated several times during my pregnancy, which I was unaware of at the time, and I do regret. However, I went into labor around 12 o'clock in the afternoon. I think it was a Friday, actually. And I was just having a lot of period-like cramps, and I was like, maybe this is the real thing, who knows, And then it got worse as the day went on. It wasn't anything that I couldn't handle, though. So I went to sleep around 10 o'clock, still with light contractions. I woke up around 12 o'clock in the morning, and they were pretty severe, but it wasn't anything that I couldn't handle while I was breathing. So what I did was I just told myself, breathe, and I was rolling around on my bed, and at the time I still lived with my mom, and she was actually really horrified by the fact that I was very calm during my labor. She's like, oh, are you okay? Are you sure you're all right? You're not in a lot of pain? Are you sure? Are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. It's just uncomfortable. And I kept rolling from side to side because that's what was relieving the pain for me. So we actually didn't go to the hospital until around 7 a.m. So it was almost 24 hours. We got there, and I was already 7 centimeters dilated. They had checked me, so I was pretty much ready to go. But my mom, being unfamiliar with natural childbirth, she's like, oh, don't do it. Don't go natural. Don't do it. You don't want to do that. It's going to hurt. Just get the epidural. You should get the epidural. And I listened, unfortunately. It was a really horrible experience. The hospital that we were at during the time that I was in labor was not honest. I opted for the epi, and in came the anesthesiologist. He introduced himself as my doctor, and he said that, it was going to be all great and gravy, and they were going to get it in and out, and we would be good to go. But during the few moments that he was prepping me, the first time he tried to give me the epi, and it failed. He did not get it in the sac in my spinal cord. And he was like, okay, well, I'm just going to try one more time. And I was like, well, okay. I'm not really a pincushion, but sure, you can try one more time. So he attempted again to give me the epi, and it was no good. He attempted to give me the epi for the second time, and this time when he tried to give me the epi, he put in the needle, and it hurt extremely bad. I don't even know what he did, but I had jumped really hard. And he's like, oh, well, if I'm going to do this, you can't jump, you have to be very still. And I'm like, well, You're not exactly doing a very good job, hence the second try. So after that, he said, I'm going to try one more time. And I looked at my mother and I said, if you can't get it this time, you're not going to do it again. I said, I don't care. I'll rip up your consent forms because I'm not a pincushion. And I kid you not, he says to me, let me go get my boss. And I'm like, your boss? What do you mean your boss? He comes back in with the anesthesiologist and tells me that he was just a student. So fast forward past that, it's now around 10 a.m. and the epi had kicked in, and of course I was confined to a bed. Wasn't able to move. Things had stopped progressing for a while. I took a nap. After that, around 11:30, my BP started to drop pretty bad. They gave me something in my IV to bring it back up. It happened again about an hour later. They did the same thing. I heard them speaking about an emergency C-section, and I looked at the doctor and I said, absolutely fucking not. No, it's not going to happen. And they said, okay. They were just looking at me like I had three heads. And I was not going to let that happen. I didn't care. And so, fast forward past that. So, after all that had happened, I was determined to have this baby naturally. It was my first baby. I wasn't really sure how everything was going to go, but I absolutely refused to have a C-section. That was not happening to me, and I didn't care what I had to do to not get one. So I was in active labor for about another 2.5 hours after they were discussing the C-section. And I told them, I'm like, I think I have to push. And they're like, no, you can't. I'm like, no, I'm gonna push. And they're like, well, there's no nurses in here, and there's no doctor in here, and you can't do that right now. And I'm like, listen, I'm gonna push, and if you don't get somebody, I'm gonna catch the baby. And they come back in, and they're like, well, we were going to give you some more of your medication through your epi because it had worn off, and I had asked for it like 40 minutes ago, but it's too late. And I'm like, okay, whatever, that's fine, because I can feel it anyway, so let's just go. And of course I'm confined to a bed on my back, so I wasn't allowed to move from that position. And the doctor literally had to like put his hand on top of my belly and push downward because Silas was stuck. Well, that's what they said anyway. He was stuck, but obviously it was on my back on an incline, so I don't believe any of that now, but he was stuck nonetheless. And, he helped get him out by putting his arm on top of my belly and pulling downward. It worked pretty well. Silas was born without any issue.